LA, we were like, oh, we should get a house.
That's
we all
right.
wanted to live together somewhere. And
Yeah, kind of. When we were first a band, we all lived without Stella earlier in our band life. We lived in a house together, and it was great because we had a garage and we wrote in it all the time. And so it seemed like, and that was such a creative time and so fruitful back in the day. So I think it was just like, that works. It's a way for us to be together, non-distraction.
We went away together.
Non-destruction.
We went away with Shannon when we first started the band
Deep
too.
Cove.
Went to Vancouver. So we've always done that kind of thing.
It's just to give the music the time and attention and take the pressure off of us trying to find time in our lives to go into the space and go in traffic back home and cook dinner for your kid, or, you know, whatever it is that takes your... Well, that's a huge one.
To cook dinner.
I just go out to eat. So
do your laundry.
I think also it's just creative, and a creative environment. It was really, Joshua Tree is a really inspiring place. It was a vacation rental. It wasn't the Integratron or something. It was
Next time.
It was a vacation rental with really funny, like, weird green colored motif.
Like fluoro
Kind of Southwestern.
green.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
And yeah, so we found this place, and the landlord was really cool. We moved all our stuff in. He knew we were going to be playing music. I guess local natives had actually written in that same place, and we didn't even know that.
About that.
Wow.
And so we just, and also it's not so far, so on weekends or certain, days of the week or whatever, people could go back to LA if they needed. And so it was just the right amount of distance and Martian-like surroundings to have a new headspace instead of just being home.
Mostly anything that we worked on in Joshua Tree we started there. It was from scratch, and it's about a handful of songs on the record came from Joshua Tree.
There were a
Well, we
few
wrote
songs-
them in Joshua Tree. I don't think we worked on anything that we had worked on before. We didn't work on High. We didn't work on Keep It Healthy. But Keep It Healthy was written on tour. Or, in our sound checks.
Basically, we had a certain amount of songs that we had started developing. We'd even played High live, and is that the only new one live? And Chick U.
We've done GQ, but
Yeah, Space 1520. And then
it was like the month before.
so we'd rehearsed Keep It Healthy and High and this other song we were working on, and so we decided to just work on new stuff when we got to Joshua Tree, and then when we got back to LA, bring those into the fold and just work on everything as an album. And we've always we had a lot of ideas, but we've often just written our album, and we're not the kind of band that records like 37 songs and
Process of elimination.
Yeah, it's more, we kind of write an album and put a lot of intention into the songs that we plan
Our
on
process to
being on the
just
album.
get together and start playing and jam. That's, and-
There's no other way to put it.
No.
We've tried.
Yeah. We just, somebody will start something and then we elaborate. Everyone elaborates on that and adds to it, and we find a couple different parts, and then we end up
process to just get
spending
together and
a
start
lot
playing
of
and
time
after that.
Jam. That's, and-
There's no other way to put it.
No.
We've tried.
Yeah. We just, somebody will start something and then we elaborate. Everyone elaborates on that and adds to it, and we find a couple different parts, and then we end up spending a lot of time after that arranging it and deciding on, years of deciding how it's eventually going to start and end. And I guess this time we added a different way of writing as well, which was kind of splitting off and doing demos in a sense, two people just sort of fleshing out a song from start to finish, or one person doing it from start to finish, and then everyone else adding in the studio later, as opposed to writing it all together at once. So we've expanded on our process because on the last album it was mostly just all writing together in the room all the time.
I think we lose our intellectual minds a lot in the process of writing. We can all really get inside just playing together and, kind of traveling and going through a lot of spaces and feelings that later we'll harness and put into an actual song. So it's a way of just kind of letting yourself go and seeing what moment that I'm really feeling. We're probably all feeling it, or it's like those kinds of, so kind of the abstract way that we start to write is usually from this kind of nonverbal connection. I'll look around and everybody's eyes are closed, and it's a lot less of a performance, like it is live, but it's definitely a connection. It's just maybe a little bit more understated.
I think when we're jamming, it actually feels like when we are playing live more than any other part of the process. When we are first writing the songs, it does feel like we're extending out. We're bigger than what it actually ends up being when we record it, which we tried to avoid this time because on the first album that happened too much, I think. Our album sounded really different from how we sound live. And this time we were trying to harness that live sound, but to really do that, you have to be really prepared with your songs. Not that we couldn't be, but for us, it's a long process to actually write a song together because I think we all have to come to agreements on everything, and I think that ends up making things take a really long time
to create a world for myself. That's how I see it.
I just wouldn't understand putting out anything that isn't something that you mean to say or doesn't make sense. Encapsulating some kind of point, or message. I wouldn't. It's surprising that someone would just sort of put that on the back burner to me. If you're going to be using words, then why wouldn't you just make them important? They seem important.
Discovery.
They don't always have to make clear sense, I understand that. I'm not saying that, but
You
They have
can
to be
mean
considered.
they have to be considered.
I'm sure they are too. I think a lot of people, automatic writing or certain things that you do really fast can be just as potent freestyling, for example, or something like that can be almost channeling something and letting it come out, which I think is, in a certain sense, a way that I like to write. And a lot of things that I've written came out right away. Mm-hmm. And then, come out with a lyric and then come out with another lyric that makes absolutely no sense, but the sound is right, and then you've got to plug in the words to try to almost solve your own riddle. And it's an interesting process because especially the fact that we've written so much as a unit all together, you got to try to write at the same speed as the music, which is developing really quick. So a lot of that has been my whole
just
verse
talking
and
about
Discovery.
how excited we are to be doing that, to be in that phase, where it's still really exciting. I don't feel like we were even this excited to play new songs when we started touring before.
No.
It's a different kind of anxiety and different nerves, but this time it's genuine excitement. And
they're translating really well as far as rehearsing is going too. It wasn't a lot of trying to figure out how to make them translate. They actually seemed built to get even a little bit bigger in the process of performance. I wrote that guitar line when we were making The Fool, actually. And I would play it sometimes on electric guitar because it was kind of hard for me to play. And so I would just practice it. And I think one time Stella was just listening, and she was like, "What's that?" And noticing that it had a really strange time signature. And I think she really wanted to crack it. And so we played it until she got the time signature and then discovered it was in, what is it? Do you actually know the time signature? It's in something.
It's just a phrasing thing, isn't it? Or is it an actual time signature? Like it goes, has weird phrasing?
It's a strange count.
it's kind of in 5
Yeah, exactly.
Some node will figure it out.
Yeah, and then and then we would play that on sound during sound checks, and then Jen figured it out, and T was playing SPDS.
Yeah.
No, at that point.
Yeah.
Oh,
key-
in that rehearsal space. That,
In San Fernando.
ABC.
You were
Yeah,
playing keys.
San
Oh, I thought
Fernando.
you were playing the keys. That came in later.
So that
Yeah.
kind of came, and we would just jam on these two ideas, which basically alternated between the verse and the line, which is kind of its chorus. Essentially, it's not really a vocal chorus. And I had a melody that I had written on a completely different part, and just plugged that in, and that song came about and kind of came together really fast, which actually happened with a lot of songs on the album. But yeah, it was really fun to play, and it was kind of the first new thing that we had created together. And I remember just listening to the demo we had made a bunch, especially with Jen in my apartment,
That
and freaking
Love
out.
is to die, love is to not die, is sort of like that. Just kind of says that's the whole spectrum of life right there. And I guess to love is to, I don't know how to put it really. I guess you played it really well the other day when we were at that other interview.
Yeah, no, that was amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think love is a focal point for humans, for life in general. So, that love is to die, love is to not die is like the whole, it's just life in general, like from birth to death, sort of what we're here for in a lot of ways, is for love and interaction with other people, and self-love and loving others. And the song in general is about getting to a place where you're not afraid of who you are, and you can open up and sort of just be available to have interactions and intimacy with other people. And the love is to dance thing is just like, is it to live or is it to die? I don't know what it is, or is it anything in between, or is it all of it in between? But then just like, why not just let it go and just like dance, which is like the best. It's just an ecstatic expression of living.
Surrender.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of, I guess, a deep song. But it's nice to sum it up into just a few
the
words.
keyboard line that I wrote on that keyboard, the prelude that I love so much. I wrote this line, and then Stella and I made this demo that was really fast. It was a completely different thing. Hopefully someday we will put out. But I had a melody to this other piano part that went with it, and Stella, I didn't know what to put on this song, and Stella was like, wait, that melody goes perfectly. And so it's like another example of taking kind of something I'd written in a different moment and putting it on top of a new idea. And that song is just, I wanted to, after we toured The Fool, a lot of the things that I was singing every night, especially we played like 300 shows, there was a lot of things that I was saying every night and singing out and proclaiming that I was like kind of uncomfortable with sometimes, and maybe in certain ways hadn't been completely integral in certain writing in certain ways, or just didn't feel anymore, or whatever. So my intentions were to write things that made me feel really good, and words and ideas and imagery that just I wanted to sing every night on tour, and even like go as far as call them like evocations, or ways to cathartically release something through lyrics and melody and the feeling of that song, which is just like so woozy and amazing. And so I just used it as an opportunity to kind of celebrate the trippier aspects of my mind, and and just kind of make a psychedelic heavily
love song
represented as like mystical, witchy, like super serious in a certain way. But then I think we pretty much represent ourselves as the goofballs that we are often.
Or that our music has this melancholy type feel, and I don't think that, or at least me personally, I don't ever feel like I'm in a sad place when we're writing our music. It actually makes me really happy, and I feel like we're all really stoked. It makes us feel good, and it's funny that it translates in a different way. People think like, oh, it's so melancholy, or they listen to it when they break up with their boyfriends or whatever. We've been hearing that a lot, and it's like, whoa, it's so weird. Doesn't come from a melancholic place at all.
We have moments like there's definite content where it's just being really expressive and being really personal, especially lyrically. I think it gets pretty personal and very, I don't know, journal entry, like what you would write to yourself and not necessarily tell everybody. And
But you are.
But it's interesting, like what Jen's saying, that a lot of people's interpretations of songs specifically come down to relationships often, and people thinking that they're about a relationship or a breakup or something, and sometimes they are, and they have been, but a lot of times I think it's a lot less of this kind of serious drama than it is an actual just self-reflection. Or even songs that people think are really sad are actually like finally getting somewhere, finally understanding something in yourself, or like just
reward.
Yeah, that kind of reflection that it takes sometimes to get to the other side of where you're at.